Welcome to the Midday Show. I am Jeff Everett. He is Mark Messina. I didn't even see you had your pit shirt on today. We're going to jump around. We're going to do some local news. We have an update on the police hiring in Tioga, Pennsylvania yesterday. We'll do some state news. There's actually a bunch of Governor Wolf stuff right before we came on the air. Nothing too crazy. And then some world news. Maybe we'll talk about clouds again. We were talking about the heat waves across the world. But we're going to jump local, state, and world today. Before we get to all of that, Mark, how are you feeling today?
I feel good. Do you have are those little Duke Blue Devil D's on your shirt there? I can't tell what you got going on.
No, absolutely never.
Are you sure?
I'm positive.
It's not a
so
D?
These are, they're just little squares.
It's just a square? Oh,
Yeah,
I thought maybe, because
just
blue and white, and it looked like kind of a navy. I thought maybe they were little like Duke Blue.
No, I'll give you that. It does look like the little Duke thing, for sure.
And I know that's right in your wheelhouse. You would be very comfortable wearing a Duke shirt.
I would wear it if it was burning. That's the length I'm willing to go for, to never wear a Duke shirt.
And see, that shows you how bright you are, because if it was burning and you wore it, then you would be burning, and that would suck.
I would be protected by the Carolina Tar Heel fate.
Is that what it would?
It would shield over me, and it would reward me for my loyalty.
Much like clouds,
which we had. So I'll do this for 10 seconds. We had a conversation about clouds before the show started today. And if you want to feel dumb, like maybe some people know a lot about clouds, if you're somebody that's never really like looked up the science behind clouds and like the statistics behind it, if you do that today, you will feel dumber. Afterwards you'll feel smarter, but in the moment you will feel dumber.
Well, and it's too bad that people who think we just talk about stupid stuff all the time weren't here, because we had a real, like the whole 15-minute discussion about, geology and climate and all the aspects of it. And it was sincere.
If you're someone who actually understands weather, then we're the two biggest idiots you've ever met.
No, but I think we sounded like, for two idiots, we cared and knew what we were talking about.
If you're just two knuckleheads, average citizens like us that kind of just look up and like, oh, that's a cloud, but never thought any deeper about it. We really got to the bottom of some stuff. We learned.
No, now I didn't understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yes. We had a really intelligent conversation for people who don't know what they're talking about.
Yes.
For people who know what they're talking about, they would have been like, just please shut up.
Because some of these numbers are interesting. One of them that I said, guess how much of the earth is covered by clouds on an average day. In an average moment, what percentage of the world is covered by clouds?
And I will stall a little bit to give people a chance to think, because you asked me this. So right away, I'm trying to picture like this pictures of Earth from space.
Okay.
Because there's always, the white cloud cover going over it, but I'm sure you can't see all the clouds. And then I'm going through, I said a third.
Can I stop you? Because this is what's fascinating about the way brains work. Your brain went to looking at the earth above it. And my brain, you know what I did? I thought about when I walk out my door and I look up in the sky, what does it usually look like? So you know what I'm saying? Like, you want to talk about how different people problem solve? Like, we did the exact same thing from different viewpoints.
Well, and here now, as I'm saying this is why I'm so stupid, because like in just explaining it to you, I even said out loud, understanding you can't see all the clouds from space.
Right.
But I didn't really calculate that into.
Okay.
So I'm like, if I can see this many clouds, how about the clouds you can't see? But I said a third.
Yes.
And then you gave me the answer.
The answer is, on the average day, on the average moment, the earth is covered 2/3 by clouds.
Obviously, I was way off.
2/3. Yeah.
And even if I would have extrapolated in, I would have never said more than half.
Yes.
Never.
And since you were willing to share your bad guess, I will share my ignorance. You brought up, I forget how the conversation started, but you brought up that water.
You were talking about India.
Yes, I was talking about India, which we might get to in the world news, but we were talking about water and about drought, and you said, well, if there's a drought somewhere, there's got to be a flood somewhere else. And I thought to myself, and I was like, are you implying that water never varies? Like it's just consistent across the earth? And you were like, yeah, like it can't disappear. Like it's either in the clouds or it's frozen or whatever else. And I had like this epiphany moment. Like I had to really think about it. So we actually looked it up on NASA. And it is true. There is a definitive amount of water, no matter what, depending, it's either in land, it's in space, or I forget what the other one was, but it was land, space, and something else. And the water level always stays the same. It's just displaced and put in different places at different times.
And
I did not know that. I knew that water was finite in the sense of like you couldn't just make more, but I had never put into consideration that like it was just always consistent.
Well, and I'm far from I'm not a science person.
Yeah,
and
it's like energy. It
right.
Can't go. Yes.
Well, that's
but
what
I never
always
put water in the same category.
That's what I always thought. Like you can't get rid of it.
Yes.
And where's it go?
Yeah.
So, or not but it's not making more. So I figured it's always the same amount. It's just in different forms. So that's it. It came back to when there was the massive flooding in Yellowstone.
Yeah.
My first thought, and again, this is from a person who doesn't like science and doesn't get it, but my first thought is somebody's having a drought because there's too much water in Yellowstone. Okay. So every time there's a flood somewhere, that's what I'm thinking. Somebody's getting shortchanged.
Shouldn't that be the first, like, if you were a flat earther and I just had that conversation with you, that alone, shouldn't that end the flat earth conversation?
There's no,
like the water can't just run off. Space. Like the water can't just run off the side of the.
Okay, I'm going to
go somewhere.
I'm going to answer your question with a question. Do you think you can have a conversation with a flat earther who's going to have like an open-minded, intelligent response?
So this is my one positive thing that I will say about flat earthers is like they show a curiosity and an initiative that like I wish they applied to something else. But you and I talk about this all the time. I've said to you before, I feel like as long as I'm always curious, I will always learn new things. There's a happiness to being curious.
A lack of curiosity would be a very lousy way to live.
Yes. And so the one thing that I will give flat earthers is they are some of the they are researching, they are digging stuff up, they are trying to
But they can't be researching.
But they are though. Like they are trying to prove a concrete theory wrong. And it takes an extreme amount of curiosity to do that. And that is the one thing I will give flat earthers. Now, at some point, you got to recognize it, and maybe you got to give up the quest.
Yeah, there's a point where you just got to be like, you know what? Maybe not.
You don't respect the quest just a little bit?
Well,
like just the quest of it?
There is a respect of the stick-to-itiveness.
Yeah.
The determination.
Right.
But at some point, you just got to be like, listen, it's just, have you seen the pictures? Like, have they flown around? Like they orbit. Yes. There's an orbit. It's not a sheet of paper and they go to one side and back the other.
There was Lewis, I forget his name, but he does.
Jerry must have something to say.
What's up?
Whenever we say something really stupid or really curious, Jerry pops in.
So
I'm not sure if we've said something stupid yet or something that has sparked it.
Is Louis Theroux. He does like documentaries. He goes and follows
Henry David's brother?
No, it is not Henry David's brother. But he goes and he follows people around. Like he followed the religious cult that was called like the angriest people in the world. Have you ever seen that before? No. He followed them around for a week. He does all these.
Was that that's what they called themselves?
Oh yeah, they're called like the angriest people in the world because they go and protest like all these different things, and they're just very ingrained in their religion and just like you can't do anything right, and it's really brutal. The point I'm trying to make is he followed around some flat earthers for a week. And they were trying to set up all these experiments and all these different things. So one of the experiments that they set up to prove that the Earth was flat is they set up a target range and they separated them by like a great distance, like almost a mile.
Okay.
And the concept was that if you hit the first target and then it would go a mile and it would hit the same spot on that target. And it would prove that the Earth is flat, that there's no trajectory.
But when gravity?
It depends what kind of rifle you have. Like it depends what you're shooting.
So if you shot it hard enough that it fought through gravity.
So they shoot the shot and it goes through the first target and nothing ever hits the second target. And they do this multiple times. And Louis Theroux is just kind of sitting there kind of like you can tell he's kind of like he doesn't want to like ruin the night, and he's clearly the minority here in the group. But you can tell like the whole time he's like waiting for them to come to the realization
for the light bulb to go
off. And I mean, it's like 7-8 hours doing this experiment and they're never hitting the second target and they just never hit it. And then at the end of the documentary, Louis kind of says like, there's a fine line between like actually doing the research and then ignoring the research. And he says, after being with them for several days, I've realized they're doing these things, but then they're completely ignoring, like they will not accept the results of the research. So yeah, so.
Well, obviously.
Yeah, no, I'm just saying though, but like, you know, that intuition, that curiosity, like all that, but then it does get to a point where like you got to accept the research for what it is. Like if you can't, then what are you really doing?
Agreed.
You're just kind of.
Well, there were some things I was going to say, and I won't say them on the air, so we'll just keep going.
No, I understand. We have. Let me check these real quick. Y'all run an amateur astronomy page. I have stories. I need hours. There you go. Do you think Lisa's into astronomy?
Okay, here's what I get. And maybe Lisa can explain this to me. Why anyone want to just look up at the stars is beyond me.
Really?
Yes.
I find it fascinating to do every once in a while. Like at the farm,
For how long?
No, at the farm we've brought up like telescopes and you can move them around. Because at the farm you
told me you have somebody has a super duper telescope.
Yes. And it is really cool when you get to do it. And we'll do it for like a couple of hours. Like it's really neat.
If you can really, I can see that.
Now, would I want to do the same thing the next night? Probably not. But for that like once a year, every other year, like doing it, it is pretty cool to do.
Okay. So you've killed an hour. Now what? Like what?
Well, now,
they're stars.
Yeah. So
it's almost like, isn't it like looking at rocks?
Well,
but you're not digging.
I'll answer.
But like I understand, like digging and finding different rocks or going on a place and find, but they're just the same.
Well, the same in this sense that there's only so many that you can see. So then what it becomes a little bit of a scavenger hunt. So with rocks, like you're looking for a type of rock, but there is no the rock. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Okay.
Astronomy, like you can look up into the sky and you're trying to find this star, this planet, this galaxy. And so there's more of like a precision of like, I want to see this because it's this time of year and it only comes around every so often. And so there is that aspect of it. Like you're finding specific things as opposed to just types of rocks.
But still, and I do get that. And I never thought of that. That's fair. But then you do. And you're like, yep, saw it. Yay.
Yeah, I mean, you check it off. For some of it, it's like a check. You know, it's like a what's the word I'm looking for? Not a scavenger,
a bucket list-ish.
Kind of, yeah. Like it's trading cards. Like you got to get them all, right? Like you got to see them all. Like there's some of that aspect to it, but some of it's just like the eye-opening experience of understanding what you're looking at. Like for some people, you're looking at a speck of light, but then when you start to get into what you're really looking at, like really diving in, it starts to warp your mind, and then it really is trippy if you start to understand what you're looking at.
Now, again, take this from a guy who doesn't like parades because they're boring, who doesn't like fireworks because they're boring. It's the same thing with me with bird watching. Like if you go to the park and you just sit in the park like this and you're waiting for a bird to fly by. Like I could see if you were in like a bird sanctuary where there were 100 different kinds of birds and you were pointing them out like at an aquarium and you're pointing or whatever, or even like I get the whole like deep sea figure glass bottom boat where you might not see something come along, but when you do, but to just stand there and look up and hope a bird flies by.
No, it's like, it's all subjective, right? Because you're somebody who could go watch a Little League baseball game and you're really watching the same thing you've watched for the last 25 years. You're watching a kid throw a ball across the plate. Someone may hit it, they may not. Like it's the same.
But it's different.
It's not though. That's the point you're making. That is really like the subjective of like, what do you prefer to see? Because there are people that would say like, how does someone go to a baseball park and do that?
With your own eyes, the curiosity grows.
There's always something new to find. For example, there's a comet approaching now. It's neat. I'm surprised that you're not as.
I guess.
I'm surprised that aspect, like the trading card, like seeing something for the first time aspect of it, I'm surprised you don't grasp. Like, I'm not saying that you should enjoy it, but I'm surprised you don't grasp that other people would enjoy that.
I don't know.
Tastes like good. The Flat Earth documentaries on Prime and Netflix are fascinating. Highly recommended. It is neat to hear other people talk about it. Like people that are so convinced about it.
I was going to say there would be a morbid curiosity to listen to someone defend a position that you know is totally wrong.
Yes.
And really, really, and you know they mean everything they say.
Yes.
That is.
I'm telling you, watching that episode the fascinating part wasn't watching them. It was watching the Louis' reaction to it. The non-flat earther. Because you can see he's kind of like, it's like watching cavemen. Like he's like, "How are you?" You know, like
You're kidding, right?
No, but it's like you can see his facial expressions, and he's just kind of like, "Oh, you're not getting this," and it's like it's very, I don't know. It's worthwhile if you've never seen this.
What? So let me just interrupt for 30 seconds. What did they offer as the explanation why the bullet wasn't getting to the second
the first
target?
one was what you had talked about, was that the gun
Gravity.
might be too weak.
Okay.
Gravity might be too weak. The sun, but see, the issue then is like, why is there gravity and how does that work? Because a lot of gravity is based around the idea of like
there's a core, right?
There's a core and there's centripetal force and like all these things that work. And so if you're a flat earther, that doesn't always help if you're using gravity as your explanation for why something didn't.
Okay.
The Midday Show Flamingos, by the way, moved to 4-0, 31-5 victory last night.
31-5. Call off the dogs for. I'm embarrassed to be associated with a team that rubs it in 31. What were you playing? A bunch of toddlers? A bunch of old women? Like, what a heartless.
No, don't be. I think we beat Toasted Bagels. I think we beat Toasted Bagels. So don't be hard. Don't be too harsh.
With 31-5.
I'm sure the Toasted Bagels put up a good fight last night.
Back it off a little bit.
I expect my Owner of the Year trophy to be coming in the mail sometime soon.
Wow,
we are on a roll. I might have just jinxed us, but we are on a roll.
Do we have a sportsmanship award, Mark?
Mark legit blows my mind. So, by the way, when you read these, read them out loud. Mark legit blows my mind sometimes. Does he not know gazing up the stars also includes broader conversation and discussions on time, the universe, and our place in it? Also, yard beers in the dark. So there you go.
Why don't
that's
drink.
what it's all? That's what it's all about.
Discussing our place in the universe. See, that's a discussion. I have a kind of a friend, an acquaintance who I know who really part of life messed up her own life by just like, what are we doing here? Why are we here? Well, I think there's some of that that's just.
There is a key to survival for a lot of humans is being able to block out or be oblivious on a day-to-day basis of what's actually happening around us.
Correct.
So I get that idea. It doesn't make the conversation any less fascinating.
Broader conversation, the discussions of time. Here, when you get to be my age, time is depressing. You don't want to, because all your discussions of time is how quickly it goes and where it went.
Yeah.
And so
there's two really, you'll appreciate these because they're not like too far out, but they are newsworthy. First, Google thinks they made a sapient. I think I'm saying that correctly. Sapient, basically a like aware robot, like AI.
Oh, really?
Yes. Now Google has not come out and said this. However, 2 different employees that work for Google that worked on the project have come out and they've been on different news channels discussing it, claiming that Google has created like awareness AI. Like they are fully functioning, aware robots.
So our work here is done. There's no more use for us.
Well, or this is the beginning of the end. One or the other, depending on who you talk to. But that's 2 different Google employees that have been let go, have come out and said, like, they definitely have it. So that's one of the interesting things. There's another conversation. There is recently a scientist who has he studies time. So within that, one of his passions is obviously time travel. Right?
Stephen
Hawking. One of his it is not Stephen Hawking. It's one of his like nerdy passions. So what they have realized with time travel is everyone thinks like when you would get into a time machine, you would go backwards or you could go forward, right? But what they've realized is time travel doesn't start until it's possible. So the reason that they think that time travel, like once time travel is invented, you'll never be able to go back to this moment. You can only go back and forth from the moment that it has been successful. Think about that for a second. So because of this understanding, they believe we are one step closer now to actual time travel because you've cut what you're looking for in half. Like looking for like time travel or time warps or holes or bends in the universe behind us makes no sense. You would only look ahead.
You can't time travel.
I'm just telling you. I'm telling you that they think that have taken a major step forward in time travel. I'm just telling you. The people that study this believe
These were
that
the flat
taken...
earthers.
No, these are not the flat earthers. These are different people.
You can't time travel because you could fall in love with your own mom and then you would never be born. Therefore,
yeah. I'm just letting you know, those were the two big things that came out in the past month. They believe they've taken a huge step forward in time travel, and they believe Google has I think it's Satan. I think I'm saying the word right. But they have a fully aware robot at Google, and Google, 2 different employees have come out and said it's true. Crazy.
By the way, one of the parts of Back to the Future that which is a brilliant, it's more brilliant every time you watch Back to the Future. But somewhere along the line, when she started calling him Calvin because it was written on his underwear, then when Calvin Klein really came along, wasn't there like like that should have been an aha moment in her life. Like, oh my gosh, remember when I called you Calvin because you had Calvin Klein? You had these underwear on in the 50s. How did this happen? Like, that should have.
This is what keeps you up at night?
No, but it's just one of the things.
No,
that,
you're
like,
dead.
It was a cute little moment in the story that she called him Calvin because she saw his underwear. And it was, for a PG-13 movie, it was like their moment of risque. But, like, there should have been a time later where she was like,
Yeah.
Like, so anyway, be that as it may. Hold on. If people don't understand the enthusiasm for looking at boxcars,
so there you go.
I just said that. I was sitting. Well, do you have my picture?
I do have your picture. So you went to a game last night. You have a cute story. Go for it.
Okay. Well, we went to Camden Yards because I spent a lot of my life in Camden Yards. It's one of the greatest places on earth. So I take my son and a friend, and well, I have multiple stories. But anyway, so we get there and I want a picture because we always take a picture because, my son and I, we almost go every year. We missed, obviously, COVID year.
Okay.
And then last year, because of travel and stuff, we ended up at a game in Philadelphia, but we did not get to Baltimore.
Okay.
So this year we were kind of like hell-bent. And so I get there and we have seats in the right field bleachers because A, they were cheaper.
Okay.
And B, I asked my son before we went, where do you want to go? He's like, I want to catch a home run. All right. So we go to the right field bleacher. And the bleacher seats in Baltimore are awesome. Okay. So the scoreboard's right behind it. We sit down and we're just like, hey, I want to take a picture with you guys in front of the scoreboard, kind of just to prove that we're here and all that.
Okay.
So I take the picture, and if you can tell, if you can touch screen on your phone or whatever, and you can zoom out, on the scoreboard and top, there's a picture in the middle, which I can't tell what it is. On the left is Billy Joel when he did a concert in Baltimore, because it's the 30th anniversary of the stadium. So they're celebrating the 30 years of Camden Yards.
Okay.
On the right is a picture from the 1993 All-Star game, which was at Camden Yards.
Okay.
The stadium opened in 92, but they didn't want to give them the All-Star game of 92 in case something happened with construction and it wasn't done yet.
Okay.
So they're like, our stadium's going to be ready in 92, they're like, okay, you guys have the All-Star game of 93. When 93, Michael Jordan was a baseball player.
Yes.
So Michael Jordan came. So that's a picture of Michael Jordan on the left in the White Sox uniform and my brother on the right in the Oriole uniform. And I didn't notice it until I was just trying to get them in the background and get the clock, and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And I sat down to look at it, and I just copied it and sent it to my son. And I was like, tell me what's weird about this picture.
Yeah.
So there we take a picture, and there's Uncle Mike standing in the background. So
pretty sweet.
Anyway, remember the story I've told you about of the guy, my Facebook friend, who is now a friend who I've never met before.
Okay.
I met him last night.
Oh,
because I texted some people on the way down and said, none of you happen to be here. And he wasn't going to go.
Okay.
But he's like, my son's going with friends, and I was going to give him his space and not go.
Yeah.
But if you're going to be there, he goes, tell me where you're at, and he showed up. So I met him.
That's awesome.
So yes, we have.
So you're like the gamer guy who got to meet his.
I am the gamer guy who got to meet. And here's what's even crazier about it.
Okay.
He told me, he goes, we did meet once before. We talked once before.
Okay.
It was the night your brother got hit in the head with a line drive.
Oh, okay.
So like of all the infamous games he's like, we had talked a couple innings before and then he got hit. And I was like, wow. Like of all the, because I've probably been to 300 games at Camden Yards, maybe more. And so the one time that I'd met him and we talked was that. But anyway, so we took that picture and there's Uncle Mike in the background. I thought it was funny.
No, it's a good one.
And yours won, and they're pretty good.
Oh yeah, you said they pulled it off.
They're pretty good. They're They
just
were
in the
over
wrong-
500 in June. You remember I wore my shirt
Yeah, no,
the
they're
other
just
day.
in the wrong
They
division.
had a good June. Well, here they were over 500 in June, and they are now on a 5-game win streak, and it's July 8th, so they're obviously over 500 in July.
Yeah.
They're doing well. They're in a tough division, but they're doing well, and they've got young team. They got they're coming.
Yeah.
It's still a great park. If you want to go see, Pittsburgh is great. Philly's not bad. It's not that Philly's a bad park. It's not that New Yankee Stadium or is a bad park either. But Pittsburgh and Baltimore are just gorgeous.
Yes. I think Philly's a little underrated because I don't really buy seats. I usually buy the standing room.
Okay.
And the way they have it set up, it's one of the best standing room only parks you can go to.
Philly's
It's
nice.
really good.
I think what happens with Philly is I think Baltimore and Pittsburgh are gorgeous.
Mhm.
And so Philly's like, well, it's not as nice. And
Sure.
I would make the argument it's not, but it's still really nice.
Yeah.
So anyway, be that
I
as it
agree.
may.
Let's do some local news. You drove up to Tioga. Was that last night? The week
I went
before last
Wednesday.
night. You went Wednesday night. You drove up to Tioga to talk about Tim Lohman. He officially withdrew his application for the Tioga Borough Police Officer. It said on their website yesterday. Effective this morning, Officer Lohman has officially withdrawn his application for Tioga Borough Police Officer. Again, he was a former Cleveland, Ohio police officer who shot and killed 12-year-old Tamir Rice. In 2014, he was approved for hire as the town's sole police officer via unanimous vote on Tuesday. Before he ever performed active duty, he obviously withdrew from the position.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked. There's lots of angles to talk about this. One of the things that you and I talked about this with the other people here before you got here. There is part of this, and obviously we don't know what went on. We don't know, but this in the Tamir Rice incident, I assume police were called because they showed up. Tamir had an airsoft gun, which I don't, and I've said this, I don't even know what an airsoft gun looks like.
Okay.
But like whoever called this in didn't call it in because they knew the kid had an airsoft gun. Somebody was afraid, thought the kid had a real gun. They called the police.
Mm-hmm.
The police show up thinking it's a real gun. And there has to be a level of scared if you're the police, of nervousness, of whatever the case may be, that someone has a gun, no matter how old they are, someone has a gun and I could get shot. And this guy gets out, and I don't know, we said we don't know what's going through his head, what he saw, what he reacted to, whatever the case may be. The grand jury acquitted him or found him, there were no charges brought. So there is that inkling where I don't want, maybe the word, you feel sorry for the guy, but
well,
there is an aspect where like
I said to you, if no one's ever going to know what was actually going through his head,
right.
Only he knows that.
Right.
Given what we've gone through in the last couple of years, there's groups of people that would have shown up to protest if it happened in their town too. And I do understand that. I also understand the aspect of, like, if it were an accident and he was told that it was a gun on the call and all this stuff, I mean, life is just going to be a challenge from here on out because you're never going to find employment. You're never really going to get away from it. I mean, he almost thought he had gotten away from it, getting a job in Tioga, Pennsylvania. We talked yesterday about, I'm sure the applications aren't just filling up the desk. I mean, I'm sure it's hard to find somebody that wants to come to Tioga, grow, have a life in Tioga, all of those things. I've also said with this before, I think there's an aspect of, is it fair to pay policemen to not be scared? And I think it's a real question that a lot of Americans should be having with each other, because we just went through it in Uvalde, Texas, where there was this aspect of you're paid to do something, you need to do something. But then, there are other aspects of this where when sometimes cops do react and they react too quickly or they react scared, we get upset.
Right.
And so I think there's a very fair conversation around a lot of what's happening right now with, is it fair to act as if we are paying policemen to not be afraid, to not be scared? Is that part of the job and the responsibility? How do you maintain that? How do you gauge that? How do you judge if a cop is performing not being afraid or not being scared. Like, is it a fair thing to actually compensate them for or expect that to be a part of the job? I think that's all a bigger, broader conversation that I would love to start having with people because I think it's very prevalent.
The reason people won't have that conversation is there's no definitive answer.
Correct.
And people like, this is how it is. They like black and white. And it is tough. And we've even, we've said from other aspects, like, shouldn't this guy just realize, like, hey, like, there's a million different lines of work. Just go into a different line of work. But there is the 1% that, like, if there was nothing to charge him for, it is a fascinating conversation, which, again, because we didn't see it, we don't know what was going through his mind. We don't know what Tamir really did.
Yeah.
We don't.
Well, we're also, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, we're also finding out that there were people on, the council, the board, that did know who he was. And
we think.
Okay.
We don't know, but we do. Someone said, and I don't know where this came from, and I should.
How should I have worded that then?
Someone said that one of the council members posted somewhere.
Okay.
Something about Tamir.
Okay.
So I should just leave it because I don't know. I've got this all secondhand.
So then it is fair to say, though, that there were people that were in on these interviews or in on the vote that did know that, like, there was a pass and that this had happened.
Nobody knows it. Like, we haven't heard that yet.
Okay.
So we don't know because there is the whole thing with his name spelled wrong. Okay. So if they just did a Google search and
it may not
have come. So we don't really know what they knew, but it's an ongoing story. But now the story is going to be how did it happen? He has resigned. So that part is over. He resigned before he started.
Yeah.
But how did we get to this point and whatever? But yes, so that happened up in Tioga. And as I told you, now I've learned that there's a borough of Tioga in Tioga County. When the story first came that said Tioga, I just assumed it was the county. I didn't know they had but you said it's the borough's part of Williamson School District, way up by the.
Yes.
And I knew it's way up by the border because I was there.
There was, in state news, that was kind of our local stuff. In state, Governor Wolf just put a signature on 31 new bills. One of them was a bill requiring childcare homes have fire safety equipment. There's an aspect to this.
You mean so like if you're watching kids in your house?
It says childcare homes have fire safety equipment.
Like a fire extinguisher?
I would imagine. Some of this stuff is, I don't know how, I think regulation can be good. I think regulation matters. I think some regulation is very hit you over the head, like no duh.
Right.
Right. There's also an aspect, though, like there is a part of regulation that, like, if it is duh, and if it is hit you over the head and those types of things, like at this point, then it's just liability and you're just covering people. And I don't know, like 31 new bills. One of them is for something that to me seems very clear. Like, if you're going to have a child care home, obviously you should have something to take care of a fire.
Well, and I know that lots of people do these things to say, like,
I did something.
It looks good.
Sure.
Your team has a bad night at the foul line. So you tell the reporters and we came in the next day and we shot free throws for the first hour.
Right.
Did it make you guys better free throw shooters? Probably not. But it looks good. And to the people from the outside, they're like, well, look, he's trying. Look at the coach. What a good coach. So, yes. Did it do anything? Does it? Yeah, I don't know. It's one of those political things that looks good.
UCLA and USC are the poll that was taken in Pennsylvania. 63% of people are pro the UCLA and USC joining the Big Ten, along with Penn State, Ohio State, and the other Big Ten schools. Surprising? Not surprising.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. I wonder how many of those are like, yeah, because I want to make a trip to LA. I would guess.
This is what I would say. I think it says a lot about what people in the Big Ten think of West Coast football right now. Because if you thought they were threats right away, I don't think it would be 63%. I think the 63% reflects people thinking like it's going to be cool and we're probably still going to beat them for the first couple of years. That's what I think the 63%.
Okay, I hadn't thought about it from actually on-field competitive. That's a good question.
Well, if I'm like Penn State fan, Like, I'm not, like, if they're better than us, I'm not excited about it. And I think most people's perception right now is that they're not.
Well, UCLA is not good. Chip Kelly's still there, isn't he? They're better. So, yeah, my immediate thought was they're thinking, like, it's the rich get richer. It just makes our conference better. Yeah. So yeah, we already think we're the best football conference in America, even though it's probably the SEC. But we already think we're really good. This just makes us better.
Yeah.
So yeah, let's be better because we want to look better.
In other state news, Pennsylvania shut down a phone app that warns of exposure to COVID-19. So they are shutting it down. They're taking it away.
I didn't even know it existed.
Exactly. Well, so we had a tournament in New York State a couple of weeks ago, and I was constantly getting like exposure notifications for COVID-19. It was like being in a different world.
I don't even want to know how that works.
Yeah. The other weird part too, well, I've said this to you too, Twitter still has a tab for COVID-19. Still.
I mean, they must know what they're doing. Speaking of Twitter.
Real quick, because it's when you go to the top of the tabs, there's 6 tabs. There's For You, there's Trending, there's News, there's Sports, there's Entertainment. And the tab in the middle is COVID-19. Still.
Seems odd. Speaking of Twitter, how about the fact that Elon Musk just had twins? Did you see that story?
I did.
Do you know how many kids Elon Musk has?
No, how many now?
Guess.
I know he has multiple.
9.
Yeah.
9.
Are you surprised? I'm confused.
What is he, a rock star? Is he an NBA player? Like,
well, I mean, close.
I mean, yes, but like,
why does it? Let me ask you this: because he's a business numbers entrepreneur, borderline scientist. Like, are you implying because he's all of those things, you're surprised that he devotes time to that, or isn't worried about, like, where are you going with it?
I would have said,
what's your sentiment?
I would have said because he's rational and intelligent.
That you wouldn't want to have 9 kids?
Well, how many different moms do you think he has with these 9?
Honestly, I don't know. All I knew is that he had multiple kids.
Because didn't he have 2 kids right apart, or was one of the sets adopted?
I didn't hear the first part you said.
Didn't he have 2 different sets of kids? Didn't he kind of Evander Holyfieldish? Didn't he have?
I know, I'm telling you, what I know is he had multiple kids. I don't know how many. And then I heard that the twin story about last year. So I don't know how many moms there are. I don't know who's related to who. I don't know the total number. I just knew that he had multiple kids and then he had twins based off of the story. I'm surprised I'm trying to think of other examples in society. Like if Jeff Bezos had 9 kids, would you react the same way?
Yes.
Why? What is it about these
because this is what I think.
Billionaires having kids that surprises you?
What? Okay, and I hate it when people answer my question with a question, but I'm going to do it to you. When you see someone who has who was the DMX? Didn't DMX? He's the one that just died, right?
Yes.
Didn't he have like 14 kids?
Maybe.
And 4 to his wife?
Okay.
So what does it tell you when someone has, like 14 kids to 8 women? What does it tell you about their mental makeup?
It tells me that it's different than mine.
Correct.
Okay.
But let's go Freud. Let's lay them out on the couch. And isn't there a great level of insecurity there?
Insecurity? Well, this is what I mean, we're going down a way different path than what I thought we were going down. What I would say to the question you just asked me is, like, for me not having kids, it's about my time. It's about my finances. Like, there are things in my life that when I hear kid, I'm like, it's going to take away from this, this, and this, and I'm not there yet. And so I'm doing everything I possibly can to not have one right now. But if you are Musk or Bezos or DMX or whoever it is, I'm guessing financially it's not a big deal.
Correct.
I'm guessing time-wise, they're still going to do whatever they want to do. Like,
Correct.
It's not changing their time or anything like that. So I'm just like, what it tells me is that what I see as roadblocks to a commitment, they don't see as roadblocks.
Okay. So exactly. Okay. So as they're going through this, as Elon Musk is now, the person who he had twins with, he was in an on-again, off-again relationship with.
Okay.
This wasn't, and now they're broken up now.
Okay.
But, were the twins born last summer?
I'm not sure.
I think they were born I don't know. But it wasn't just like some, random,
I think
whatever.
it was with an employee.
Well, whatever, but it was a relationship. It wasn't just it wasn't after the Christmas party and they just whatever. But if you were at a point where you're like, it doesn't matter if I knock this person up because I can write a check and then I don't have to have any commitment to this. Because parenthood is a time commitment more than anything else. So it certainly says something about your makeup where you're like, I don't care if they're like, here, how about this? He's rich as can be. He's got 6 kids already. Have a vasectomy. Like, it's just not that hard.
I get that. Slow down, because here's what I would say to you. I agree with what you're saying, but there are people across this country that make a good living, and one of the parents is a stay-at-home parent.
Okay.
And the parent that goes to work is not involved. Like, they just aren't. Like,
but they're way more involved than these guys.
But this is the point. But this is the point I'm making to you. Like, some of them aren't. Like, the gap is closer than what you think.
You can't tell me that someone who has.
I think I am. I think that's what I'm doing.
No. Hold on. And you can't tell me that someone who has 8 different baby mamas is nearly as involved. And I get what you're saying. There's the career business people who are working 60 and 70 and 80 hours a week.
Yeah.
And I get that. But they're still more involved than the guy who has 8 kids to 6 months.
But what I'm saying is, like, where you place your vendetta and how much of it, I'm just saying I wouldn't be as judgy. That's all. I'm just saying, like, the way you're reacting to him, I feel like you would give no grief to the individual who has a stay-at-home significant other and puts no effort into the stuff at home or with their kids. Because to you, like, they have one wife or they have one husband and they have their kids under one roof. And so now it's not this as big of a deal to you. That's all I'm saying. And I'm just saying I wouldn't be as quick to. I think those two things are closer together than what you think.
I get your point. I'm just saying that anyone, and it's funny because this follows up the Roe versus Wade, but any guy who is into whether it's a relationship or whether it's a one-night stand, and their thought process is, I have plenty of money, so it doesn't matter if this person gets pregnant because I can just write a check. Or they think like, I'll be a good dad one day every 3 months and sending them presents. If that's their mindset, then there's something wrong with it. I don't say something wrong. That goes into the psychology of the insecurity of the whatever. But I don't think a rational, level-headed, grounded person says that.
Like, here's an example. Like, Lisa says, Musk claims he's contributing to helping save the world from population collapse. He truly believes this.
That actually is funny because I can't believe he means that.
This is what I would say. Because I think, like, I'm obviously, like, we're disagreeing on some of this, but really some of it is like I'm playing a little bit of devil's advocate. Like, I'm just trying to play the other side. There is, though, I think there are people that really believe the things that they're doing in their life trump being a parent. I really believe those people exist. And especially if they can justify that by the fact that there is someone looking out for the kid, even though it's not them, and they can financially compensate for it. Now listen,
and I get you that, and I don't have 9.
But here, you and I can debate the merit of that. Like, if you and I want to have the moral conversation about what that says about a person, we can have that debate. I'm just saying, though, like, to them,
that's their mindset.
That's their mind. That's where they're at.
That's fair. But it's
Musk, like, I am
it's crazy.
saving the planet, and it is like I'm building electric cars, and we're moving forward, and I'm progressing. And like, if I have kids, I have kids. But like, this is what I'm focused on, and these are the things I'm doing. And the kids are good, and they're going to be taken care of, and they're going to have a better planet, and they're financially secure, and they already have someone looking out for them. Like, I don't know. Who am I to sit here and tell Elon Musk? I may disagree with it, but like, I'm not going to vindictively go out.
And I get all those things. other than the fact that they don't have the, like, you're bringing in someone into the world who doesn't have a father, and you know it, and you're cool with it. Like, this kid is going to be, they're going to have money, but they're not going to have the emotional relationship of a father. And I know it, and I'm good with it, and good. They're rich. Well, who cares?
No, I hear you.
I just think it's odd.
I hear you. 2021, there are not enough people in the world that could threaten human civilization. That is true. After watching him on Rogan, I am convinced that having kids with Elon Musk would be an unpleasant affair. I don't disagree with that.
Does taste like good mean the conception part, or the actual raising of the children?
Could be both.
Could be all the above.
We would have to ask him.
And didn't he date, what's her name? Johnny Depp's chick?
Yeah.
I can't think. Why am I missing her name? Amber Heard. They dated, right?
They had some type of thing. I don't know if it was like long term or how long it lasted.
He must have had a couple kids with her. He seems to have them with everybody else.
Wow.
No, that was a joke. That was like
really all over this.
That was a joke.
Well, I know that was a joke, but you're very, I guess, here's the funny part. It's not that I respect him it's not about respecting him. There are people who do it and don't realize they're doing it. And then there's people who are doing it and will don't hide it. This is what it is. I have this many kids. I have this many moms running around looking after them, and they're fine as whatever. There are parents all across this country that think they're doing it and they're not. They think they're being a good parent, but they're not.
Oh, and I don't disagree with that.
So my butting of heads with this isn't about disagreeing with you as much as it's it feels like we're just picking Elon Musk because he's flat out yep, I just had 2 twins last year and electric cars. But there's parents, parents all over the country where it's they're putting way more time and effort into other things, but they think they're being a good parent because they stayed with their significant other and they're all under one roof. And so even though I'm sneaking out on Saturday night,
I do get that.
I'm just saying.
But isn't there a level of at least they think they're doing a good job?
That's the point I'm making.
As opposed to Musk, who's I'm not going to do a good job, and I don't care.
I think that's the point I'm making, though, is because that's almost, in a way, it's not worse, but isn't it equal thinking you're doing it but you're not? Isn't that almost worth thinking you're a good parent when you're not?
No, but that still doesn't excuse Elon Musk, who's just I don't care.
That's why I said but the point I'm making, though, is I think you're very willing to call out Musk for it, whereas I don't think you would call out the other parent who thinks they're doing a good job.
No, I do. There's a lot of parents who are who underachieve, who should be called out. No, and I get what you're saying. I guess so. Let's say this. So if we wake up 2025 and Elon Musk has 3 more kids, is it even more absurd? Yes.
Sure.
Do you think so?
I think it's absurd. I want to be clear.
Okay.
I clearly think the Musk thing is absurd. What I'm saying, though, is
it's unfair to single him out because there's a lot of
I'm saying we're going to single him out, but if you look across this country, there are people that keep their business under one roof, but I would argue they're just as bad of a parent. And the only difference is they've kept it under one roof.
I guess maybe my shock with it was that he is the smartest person in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously but he kind of comes across that way. And you would just think that in all this intelligence, and I know there's so many different levels of intelligence, but in one of his levels of intelligence, you would think that he would grasp that, if I'm going to bring kids into the world, I need to be a good father, and being a good father needs to be present. And I can't have 9 kids, and I can't work all these projects all over the world, all these, and still be present enough with the kids that I just need to stop having kids. And if I want to make some kids' life better, then just go give money to these foster kids or whatever.
Yeah. The interesting word that you said there is present, because if you listen to Elon Musk talk, if you ever listen to him give an interview, he was on the All In podcast, he was on the Rogan podcast, everything else, even when he's in the room, you don't really feel like he's there.
Because his brain is so...
Yes. So the weird part, though, is you're talking about the value of presence about a guy who really is never present. So
what you're extrapolating to is if he's sitting at the dinner table with all 9 of his kids, his brain is off solving world problems anyway.
Yeah, that's part of it. What I'm really extrapolating to is this idea of you value presence. I value presence. I had a father who was unbelievably present in my life, and it was unbelievably valuable.
And you would think you would have turned out better.
You would think. What I'm saying is like the value you and I put on that, we are talking about a guy that when he's in an interview, he's literally doing it like from a factory with stuff going on around him. And you can see like he's answering the questions and he's so intelligent, he can do it, but he's not there. Like you can tell like he is thinking on other levels and other things. And so this idea of like presence, he may not have a value of it. Like he may not
and that's true.
Understand.
But so back to the Freudian with him on the couch. Hasn't it been said he's on the spectrum?
I mean, I don't know how to politically correctly say this. I wouldn't be surprised if he was. I don't know that for certain.
I'm guessing because he is so smart. He
suffered from Asperger's. I think it's Asperger's.
Okay, and Asperger's so growing up, having a level of Asperger's and being so smart, I'm sure he wasn't the homecoming king.
No, Elon Musk revealed he has Asperger's.
Okay,
that was late last year.
Don't you think this is like he's still trying to prove how cool he is? Isn't there somewhere along the line that he's still trying to prove how cool he is?
That's not where. Why would he have to prove that with kids?
And here's the thing.
He's
I go
like
back to
literally doing things nobody else does. He's going to space.
So
you think he has to prove it with kids?
Then why? And it comes back to I need to know to fully figure out my equation and my hypothesis. I need to know how many baby mamas go with these 9 kids. If there's 2 moms and it was 2 different relationships, then it's kind of one thing. If he has 5, or if he's Mick Jagger all of a sudden, if he's Ray Lewis, if he's all these people who have all these, like, then it's different. There has to be a psychological insecurity about impregnating all these different women. There just has to be.
Okay.
Get Dr. Phil on the horn.
So Vicky thinks she has it. She thinks 3 moms first had twins and triplets.
All right, 3 moms is different. 3 moms is not as bad as I thought. Because it's probably 2 marriages in a relationship. Has he been married twice?
I don't know how many times he's been married.
And oh my gosh. So of the 9,
I mean, he was
there were only 5. There were 2 sets of twins and a set of triplets. There's been 5 pregnancy. Okay, that's a little different.
I mean, he was, and here's the other thing too. Like he was at the hospital for every single one of these births. Now, granted, there were twins, triplets, and twins, so it's not like he had. To show
all right, I
times.
take some of it back. Twins. I knew one was twins, so I was figuring there were 8 different pregnancies.
Twins,
there's only
twins, triplets, and twins.
3 relationships, twins. Okay, it's different. That it's not as bad as I thought.
It doesn't take away from the conversation. Like what's interesting.
He should be done. Can we agree with that?
Well, what's interesting to me isn't that he should or shouldn't be. It's not like he should or shouldn't have kids. I thought the conversation would be about like his ability to parent, whereas your conversation was more about like the number of kids and should he be having these kids.
Like when you're bringing new kids into the world that you know you're not going to be present for. And the justification is I can just write a check and the kid's going to be totally taken care of. Like that's
Google Amber Heard Elon Musk embryos. That sounds like a rabbit hole, Lisa. I don't know if we have enough time for that one. Mark nailed it. He does constantly try to prove how cool he is. It's so unnecessary. However, he's constantly trying, and it's obvious he's trying. So here's the thing. I agree with you. I agree with him. I just don't know if having kids makes you cool. Like him doing, like him wanting to go to space, him wanting to like make electric cars, him wanting to do stuff for free, him wanting to take over Twitter, him going on SNL, like all of those things. I agree. There's an unbelievable effort to come off as cool. I'm missing the gap of Elon Musk having kids making him cool.
Well, do you understand the process of how babies are born?
I do. I do.
I don't know.
I do, but you can. I mean, again, like there's, you can do that.
There's
there's this whole thing in America called hookup culture, and he doesn't. like depending on what you're
No,
doing.
I
if
mean,
you're lucky
I
enough,
am,
you don't have
as
to have
we're going
kids.
live here, I am backtracking a little because I assumed there were way more moms than 3.
The twins, triplets, twins thing changes it.
It does change. I assume there are more moms and more pregnancies.
He technically has 10 kids. The first died at 10 weeks old of SID.
Oh, that sucks.
Did not know that.
That's bad.
So there you go.
But still, I mean, it's time for a vasectomy.
You think so?
It really is.
Okay. Any other thoughts before we go? That was good. We did some local, we did some state, we did some world.
And then vasectomy talk.
We talked about clouds.
I can tell you a story about my vasectomy sometime. Good times, good story.
I don't know if I want the vasectomy talk. I'm getting to that age now, though, where I have to start thinking about like different doctor trips that I've never had to think about before. So there's that.
Yeah.
I went from the age, this is a true story. I went from the age of probably 25-ish. I was probably 26 maybe until 35 without seeing a dentist. And my world like didn't change. But I feel like that's going to change now. Like I feel like as I get older, like I'm going to have to start doing some of that stuff again. Don't you go through a phase like when you're
It's
like
so funny because you just were talking and my foot started hurting for no reason at all.
when you're like a kid and you're going through college and stuff, like it's still like you still want to do these, dentists and checkups and eye stuff and like you're still doing all that. But then you hit this weird like adult prime where like you're not the smartest you'll ever be or the most set you'll ever be, but physically like you've got it.
No,
going.
that's fair.
So you go through this phase of like your 20s to your 30s where it's like, I don't need to go to the eye doctor. Like I don't need to go to the dentist or everything else. And what I've noticed in the last year or so is like, I'm getting to the point now where like, I probably need to start doing that stuff again.
Yeah. And you just become more aware, like as people get older and you're just like, you see people, with cholesterol issues or you're more aware of what your parents, like, do you have high blood pressure? Do you have high cholesterol? And then you actually, sometimes you care about what you eat.
Sure.
So yes, that stuff does come into play.
Yeah. I'm there.
Yeah, I don't know. You do just become more aware. Like this is a stupid story. This doesn't have anything to do with health, but when you go through pregnancy, and I remember like going to get when my ex was pregnant, you go to the ultrasound. The only care in the world, and I say this for 99% of the people. I'm sure there are people that are smarter and more balanced, but the only care in the world of going to the ultrasound, especially like the 20-week ultrasound or whatever, is you can find out what the gender is. And you can, whether you want to know or whether you don't want to know. That's all they care about. Well, the whole time. And it took me a couple kids to kind of grasp, because I was hell-bent on the no, I don't want to know. I don't want to know till the baby's born whether the baby's going to be boy or girl. No, it's better, and I'll give you a whole, it's just better. Don't do it. Hold out. But the whole time we're there and we're talking, the ultrasound person, whatever their title is looking at things. Do the lungs seem to be developing? Are there 2 kidneys? Blah 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 blah. And like they're doing it for medical reasons.
Sure.
And all we're worried about is it a boy or girl, boy or girl, boy or girl.
Right.
Until you find out that someone during one of those they find a problem. And then these kids at Hopkins all of a sudden, and they're trying to fix this kid in utero, and then you realize the magic of what they can do medicinally and all this stuff and all. And then it hits you like, whether my kid's a boy or girl doesn't really matter. I just want my kid to be healthy.
Yeah.
But it takes stuff like that. So it's the same thing growing up. You're like, I feel good, until one day you come home and some relative of yours has a cholesterol level that's through the roof.
Right.
And then you're like, wow, maybe I should find out what my cholesterol level is. So it's not, there's a ignorance to being a young adult.
Sure.
That it's the youthful ignorance that we haven't grown out of. We've grown out of a lot of the youthfulness, but there's this indestructibleness that we still have until something wakes us up and we realize we're not quite indestructible.
Yeah.
So yes,
that was a good way of explaining it.
It doesn't surprise me that that your doctor, you will become more and more, you'll have a tighter bond with your doctor as you continue to get older. When you're going in and you're like, what test do I need? Should I get this done now? And they're like, next year's good, this year's good. And It really is different.
Yeah.
When you're young, it's a pain in the ass.
Yep.
When you're older, it's a pain in the ass, but you're grateful for it.
Yeah. Nope, I'm there. I can tell.
So there you go. Well, you're getting old. Your best days are behind you, buddy.
Best is strong. I think I've said this before with everything. It's the recovery. That's the difference. Like if I do something, I can still in the moment I can do it. If I have to go do it the next day again, like you're sore, you don't have the same lift, like you don't like all of that stuff.
Well, remember when I told you my foot started hurting while you were talking?
Yeah.
Doesn't hurt anymore. I've already recovered.
Wow, good for you. That
just out of nowhere, my foot just hurt. You were talking about being old, and I just felt a pain.
I don't think that was relevant, but thank you guys for watching the Midday Show. Be sure to go to NorthcentralPa.com for all of your local news.
You realize today's Friday already? We're back to the weekend.
It is. The Midday Show Flamingos are going to party this weekend. 31-5 victory.
31-5. That'd be cool if it was football. It'd be cool.
If it was football?
It'd be cool if it was football.
Why?
In wiffle ball, when you win 31-5, you're running up the score.
You think so?
I know so.
There's no mercy rule. You just got to keep playing. What are you supposed to do?
Can you show some mercy?
I understand that, but what are you supposed to do? Like not swing the bat? Like how do you, in wiffle ball, how do you not run up the score?
Don't run.
Yeah, but even if you're just hitting, like if you're just hitting it and it's going over the fence. Like,
then don't hit it over the fence.
Okay, so this is the point I'm making then. So what you're implying is don't try.
What I'm implying is call off the dogs.
Listen, if they want to end the game, like there's a 10-run rule or after 4 or shorten the game up, I get it. If there's none of that in place, as a player, what are you supposed to do? You're just going to not try?
You can make outs.
Interesting. Conversation for another day. I'm Jeff Everett. He's Mark Messina. Thanks for watching The Midday Show.
We'll see you.